They had just had church, which means every outlaw from that chapter is there. So I'm looking at like 12 or so outlaws. And I'm down there with 2 who have pistols, and that doesn't let me know I'm not free to leave. So he tells me, I need you to write down your full name, your address, date of birth, social, all this stuff. And he says, and then I need you to take off all your clothes because I need to check you for a wire. And the problem is I was wired to the hilt.
Hey there. Welcome to the God's Goodness Podcast. We are your hosts, Josh and Shelley Hankins, and we're here to share real stories of God's power. Stories of hope, healing, and miracles that will strengthen your faith. No matter what you're walking through, we want to remind you that God is good and He's still moving today. Let's dive in. Today, we have a truly extraordinary guest. Scott Payne is a retired FBI special agent whose undercover courage earned him the nickname Hillbilly Donnie Brasco. For over 20 years, he risked his life infiltrating hate groups, biker gangs, and extremist cells, including the KKK and a group plotting mass violence right here in the U.S. But this isn't just a story about crime and justice. It's about what happens when God places someone inside the enemy's camp and still covers them with divine protection. Scott's mission stopped terror plots, exposed evil, and showed that even in the darkest places, God is still moving. If you've ever wondered, can one life really make a difference? This conversation will stir something in you. Scott, we're honored to have you. Would you start us off with a quick prayer?
Sure. Here we go. Lord, we come to you today. Just pray that you will just fill us. Let us be a vessel for you, that you will fill us with your Holy Spirit so we can do your will. And that everything, as I've been doing this whole process, that it's that your will be done. And we thank you for everything. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. So, Scott, before we get into your FBI work and those intense undercover missions, can you take us back to the beginning? Like, what was life like growing up? And were you raised a believer? What did faith look like for you in those early years?
Sure. There's a lot of comedy in my stuff, at least in my head. I laugh, especially when I look back. But I was raised in a Christian home. I mean, I didn't even see my dad drink a beer. And I went to my first 7 years at a Christian school in Greenville, South Carolina. And both sides of my family, actually both of my grandfathers were pastors. And my mom's dad, we had a big claim to fame that, one day on the Gaithers, they were talking and they were like, we were just at a tent revival in, Marietta, South Carolina. And they were like, that was my grandpa, But back then, I tell this as a kind of a comical thing. When I finally got baptized as an adult, I was married, me and my wife, we were in McAllen, Texas. But when you go in and get baptized, they ask you, they're like, hey, have you been saved? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, okay, when was it? And I said, which time? And they're, and they're like, what? There's like a one significant. I go, no, I got a bunch. I said, I went to a Christian school for 7 years. I think every week they would have a new pastor come in, and it was a lot of hellfire and brimstone. And a lot of the Southern Baptist kind of, we're not worthy kind of stuff. And I mean, I was a kid. I felt guilty. I went to every week they had an altar call, and I think I went and got saved every week. So whether it was because I felt bad for eating a Snickers or something I wasn't supposed to, or pushing a kid or something, who knows? But yeah, that was pretty funny. But on the family side as well, there's a lot of musicians and singers on both sides of my family. So I got to see them, grow up around them, practicing on the weekends, going and singing gospel at different churches and helping new churches that were opening and starting up. And I cover some of that in the first chapter of the book.
So which time was it that you were saved?
All of them. I'm like, yeah.
I vested. Which one was it?
I know, Lord. Yeah. I was almost doing the revolving door repenting thing, but I was just a kid,
I mean, no, I hear you. I didn't accept Jesus till my 30s. I was raised Buddhist, and I remember every week when they would do an altar call, I would still be saying the words and meaning it because I was just like, maybe it's not sticking, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Because like my life really didn't change dramatically. I was aware of sin in my life. There was conflict, but it just didn't. I didn't feel that thing that other people said that they felt. I'm like, well, maybe I'm broken. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. So I just do it again.
yeah. Till it sticks. Yeah, I got you. Actually, the church I'm at now, I'm a musician and a singer as well, but I'm one of the like worship leaders and I'm electric guitar one and stuff like that. But when we do at my church now, when we do that open prayer at the end, everybody does it together because we kind of say nobody prays it alone. So it's and then everybody does it, and then you do the thing with everybody's head still bowed if you've just said that for the first time, raise your hand kind of thing. And, we're not going to come tackle you. We're not going to beat on your door. We're just going to hand you some stuff to get you to the next step.
That's perfect.
Now, you have quite the testimony and quite the story. So how did you get into being an FBI agent? I know you had like the background where you weren't perfect. And
yeah,
I was watching a clip.
Perfectly bad,
Yeah, you had to like check off things like even if you didn't get caught.
That was the sheriff's office. Yeah. When I applied for the sheriff's office, I applied for, I think, 4 different departments when I came out of college. I actually went to Charleston Southern University, which used to be Baptist College of Charleston before it became a university. So a Christian school as well. I applied to like 4 different places. And at that time, even though I came out of college with a 3.8 average, my last 2 years, I was on the dean's list playing NCAA football. But at that time, what all the departments told me is they weren't hiring white men. And I was like, that's cool. I wish I'd have known that like 2 years ago. Maybe I'd have changed my major. But I kept trying. And then, as all things do with God's plan, it's on his time, not ours. But I applied for a Greenville County Sheriff's Office back where I grew up. And one of the things that in the hiring process, you're filling out paperwork, and it said something to the effect of, hey, there's a sheet with all these crimes just listed, like DUI, petty larceny, grand larceny, malicious damage, public indecency, whatever the heck. And it said, circle any of the following that you've done. And it's something like, even if you never were caught. And I'm like, well, goodness gracious. I'm like, okay. I mean, I was circling everything. I'm like, yeah, malicious damage, yes. Public indecency, yes. DUI, yes. Petty larceny, yes. I mean, I was just going down the list, And then they called me in and asked me. And like they were acting kind of shocked. And they're like, what, did you do all this? And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't get caught. I mean, but you told me to be honest, so I'm being honest, And then I explained every situation. And by the end, he was laughing, and I guess they liked the honesty. And I went through the next phase and got hired by Greenville County Sheriff's Office, and I worked there for 5 years, which back then seemed like a long time. But now that I'm 54, it's just a
Blip.
Little speck. Yeah, it's nothing. It's a grain of sand on the beach,
Yeah. So even though you were raised Christian and went to all those Christian schools, you still fell among the sinners and had the ways of the world. When did you build that relationship with Jesus? Because I know that makes a difference.
Well, I mean, it was there and I built it, but kind of like you were saying, does it stick or do I stray? I mean, people stray. We're all broken. If anybody tells you they're perfect, well, that's your first clue that they have no idea what they're talking about.
Lying.
We're all broken. we all sin, But there was a part, I put this in chapter 1. It's a pretty significant, pivotal point in my life. I had gotten into a very dark place of messing around with witchcraft and led to Satanism, devil worshiping. And we're talking 80s, maybe mid 80s, something like that. And mid to late, I guess. I was doing this little stick where I would talk like a demon. And I watched all the horror movies from A to Z back when you could go to a store and rent them.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I know, right? And then Please Be Kind, Rewind, all that stuff. But I did that, and I was just going to a dark place. Now, as I got older and I looked back, and my minor was psychology. I love the study of that kind of stuff. And I was like, I see what happened. My parents got divorced. And like I said, I'd never seen them argue for like 12 years of my life. And I think 13 years old or somewhere around there, they argued for a year straight. They got separated. They got divorced. So it kind of gave me an I don't care attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that I don't care attitude and applied it to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had somebody that was, we're listening to heavy metal, which I still listen to all kinds of music, but it started down a path. And I started studying like Aleister Crowley and like pacts with the devil and Satanism and the different witchcraft stuff. And it got to the point to where I was really losing a lot of my core friends. I was scaring people around me. And then one night we had a party at somebody's house and I had drank, nothing else, no hallucinogen, nothing like that, just drinking. And I didn't drive. I mean, we were going to crash at that person's house. So I was on a couch. And what I did is I played this skit out like live. And it was a scene from a demonic possession movie I'd seen. And the long and short of it is, it's a demon trying to possess a person, the person screaming and arguing and fighting, and then the demon's coming in with its voice, and then at the end, the demon wins, and the demon possesses the person, and they're laughing like a demon. So I enacted that out, and I was facing the back of the couch, laying on the couch, my face facing the back of it. And when I started laughing like the demon, as if the demon had won, I rolled over, and when I rolled over, all I saw was like a red, watery image. And it was a demon looking at me. Could have been the devil, I don't know. Looking at me, smiling with a like crooked finger and that kind of watery image, like it kind of ripples, and pointing and smiling, like telling me to come here. And I screamed bloody murder. And from 4 or 5 feet to the light switch, I was as white as a sheet. I was panting. I was pouring sweat. And my friend, one of my really good friends, still to this day, was in there with me. And he jumps up and he's like, "What the heck's going on?" And I looked at him and I was like, he was like staring at me like, what is happening? And I was like, if I ever do that again, if I ever use that voice, if I ever, whatever, anything close to this, you have my permission. I said something to the effect of, you can take a bat and crack me over the head with it. And everything in the room got calm. And he looked at me, and it was like it wasn't him. It was like the Holy Spirit entered him. And he looked at me and he said, "I told you so, didn't I?" And that was it, man. And I didn't sleep. As I said, I didn't drive there. That was a Saturday night. I walked to Edwards Road Baptist Church in Greenville, South Carolina. I think I sat through every service that day. And that was it. That was it for me and devil worshiping. We were done.
Wow.
Yeah, he took it a little bit more seriously than you are.
I laughed at it, but I was scared. And
No, absolutely.
The Lord has a funny way of laying the smack down on me many times in my life, and
he's good at it.
Yeah,
In a way that'll speak to us.
Yeah, exactly. It's you think you can't be humbled? Well,
Wow.
I beg to differ. I've been humbled many, many times,
Yeah,
and
he
then
likes
a lot
to
of
kick
times
that stool out.
Yeah, and then you find yourself at the foot of the cross, and you're begging and you're praying, and I've again, my mind has got a sick sense of humor, but I picture the Lord talking back to me, and I'm like, "Lord, it's Scott. I'm in a real bad bind here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep going like this. I really need you." And I'm picturing with the Lord looking at me going, "And who are you again?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's me, Scott, And then the last time we spoke to each other was," and I'm like, "I mean, it's been a year or so, but listen." And that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, so you come when things are bad, but when things get good in life, sometimes we stray away. And that's what happened to me more than once. And when I heard, that's the conversation I heard him having back with me, so you only come when you need something? Is that what happened? So things have been good and I haven't heard from you in a year? And I'm like, yeah, so clearly I need to work on some things. Help me. help me.
Wow.
So was that about the time when you started taking it a little bit more seriously?
Yes, but I mean, all through life, things happen. Like I remember being an agent, and that's when that story I just told. I was a new agent in New York City. I can't remember what strife was going on, but I do remember going out. I was letting my dog out at night, and I'm sitting on the bench overlooking the skyline of New York City, and I was saying that prayer, and I'm like, I don't know what you have in store for me, but I'm just asking that you speed it up because I don't know how much more I can take of this kind of thing. And that's when I heard that other side talking back to me like, and you are. And then you go through life and other things happen. And I tried to do better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was a point in the book, I go into great detail about it, but there was a point in my life where I crashed physically and mentally. It was another pivotal point in my life. You know, you can look back, I probably got like 3 or 4 that I can totally say, man, that was a pivotal point where that steered me on a trajectory completely different than what I was on. And I had basically been doing too much for me. And I met my threshold after about a 3-year period of me stopping taking care of myself, not sleeping, forgetting how to relax, zero decompression, didn't even know what to do to relax anymore because I took the warrior mentality and I applied it to everything. I'm not saying I'm tough. It's just that that's what I was doing. I'm a workaholic I get it honestly from both parents. And I just kept going until I crashed. And apparently I passed it on to my kids because one of my kids has just, pushed themselves so hard and they finally just hit a wall. So I was able to speak from experience to them. But when I was there scared, feeling like I couldn't breathe, turns out I had PTSD from something else that had happened a long time ago. And, I'm going to therapy, but I'm talking to a Christian counselor, but I'm writing a journal and I'm really, really scared. I'm beat down. I don't know if I'm having a nervous breakdown. I don't know what's happening in my body. Essentially, I was just too tired. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't sick, but I slept over. When I finally crashed, I think I slept the first 2 days. I might have slept almost 20 hours a day. And then I slept over 16 hours a day for the rest of the week. And I knew something was wrong. But so here I am, beat down, completely humbled, got the smack down on me. And I'm trying to figure out, how can I get back to being the agent, to being the tactical person, to being the SWAT, to being fire, to being undercover, to being me, to being a man. And how can I get back there and remain humble to God? And I'm like, so I'm wrestling with all this stuff. And it might be, everybody has to go through their own thing. It might be easy for somebody from the outside to look in and go, hey, Scott, this is the problem. But I wasn't seeing it. And one day when I was praying, I was like, again, asking myself, how am I ever going to be who I don't know if I am. And then it hit me like a brick in the face, man. And then the Lord said, son, you would have never been able to do the things you've done if it wasn't for me blessing you in the first place. And when that hit me, this light bulb went off and I went, aha, I know how to remain humble to God and possibly get back or be better than I ever was. And that was a turning point for me. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I'm like, okay. So then we transfer from McAllen, Texas to East Tennessee, join a new church. And at that point, I said, you know what? I am not going to let my job interfere with me worshiping and using the skill set that the Lord's blessed me with. And that's when I started playing and singing. And even though I went undercover for 1.5 years, not too far away, I said, nope, I made a promise. I said, I'm not going to let my job interfere with it because I have before. And I'm gonna praise, I'm gonna worship. And I was like, and if it blows the case, oh well, it is what it is. And then I put that in the book. I was the headless guitar man on anytime you saw it. They didn't put my face for 1.5 years on the screen because they knew I was undercover. So
wow. I was gonna say, how would that work out? Like how conflicting would that be to be like, hold on, I'm deep undercover, but I gotta go back home and praise and worship in the band, and then I'll be back on Monday.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell the bad people that, or the targets, or people I was pretending to be Scott Calloway against, But I told the team that people were like, hey, what if somebody comes in here that knows you as this other guy? I said, well, we'll do the Christian thing first.
Yeah, he's about to meet Jesus.
Yeah, go over, pray with them, see what's going on, and then, I might be able to sell it as, we'll wing it from there. Well, I might be able to say, yeah, I found this church, man, but they pay me to play. I might have been able to play it off as like, I'm just doing this for a gig, but most likely I'm probably just going to say, can we pray anything over you? And then I'm going to ask them to step outside the church. And then we can have another come to Jesus meeting and say like, hey, do you want to blow what I've been doing for the FBI, or you want to be on board kind of thing? We'll see. But the job wasn't more important is where I was at that point.
If you've been listening for a while, you know we love sharing stories where God moves in unexpected ways. And lately, I've been hearing some powerful testimonies from people using the X39 patch by LifeWave. It's a little patch about the size of a quarter that uses light to support your body's natural processes. That's it. Nothing goes into your body. No drugs, no injections. It's backed by years of research and designed to promote general wellness. Now, I can't promise results, but what I can say is this. People I trust are using this patented technology, as well as myself. We're loving it and even building an income stream just by sharing it. So if you've been praying for something that aligns with your values, whether that's for your health or your finances, this might be worth exploring. Tap the link in our About section to learn more about X39. So you were put in a lot of spots where God had to protect you. Like I was binging on the Instagram feed earlier, and the one you were mentioning about getting checked for wires, and you were wired up, and then so tell us about that one instance. Like, I know you have a lot.
Yeah. So I was primary undercover in the Outlaw Motorcycle Club case, which is a 1%er club. But this particular chapter, the chapters we were working as the FBI that I was working with was up in Boston, near Boston. It was like Brockton and Taunton, Massachusetts. But of course, when you're there, you meet all kinds of other people. But it was a 2-year case. I went in, I befriended a lot of people. I got into the group. We're riding around, we're committing crimes. They're reporting vehicles stolen, getting their insurance money. I'm buying the vehicles at a stolen price. They think I'm taking them to Mexico. Then they start carjacking vehicles, and they're calling me, and my nickname with them was Tex. And they're like, Tex, we got this car, man. We got to get rid of it, dude. It is hot. And I'm like, I got you. No problem. We pull up with a semi-truck, load the car up, take it off. Then they steal cars off the lots. And then it starts getting, you're gaining trust. And now there's like a murder. And then we're trying to figure out who because we're pretty sure it was the Outlaws out of Florida. So we're working that side. There's all kinds of dope stuff. There's extortion. Almost everybody in the Taunton chapter were straight thugs. They had no job. All they did was criminal stuff to make money. And so I'd gained a lot of trust. I had made some very tight relationships. And at a year and a half, after doing all this stuff for a year and a half, being the FBI, up the ante, and we were going to do a drug deal. And they didn't know it, but we had like 40 kilos of real cocaine, 1,000 pounds of real weed. I know weed's not that big of a deal now, but this is like 2007-ish, so it was still a pretty big deal.
And a lot of weight. That's
a lot of it. Yeah. Boy, it reeks too. You can just walk. you can walk past the truck and go, woof, that thing's got some weed in it. So we were up in the ante because they wanted it, right? So they're wanting it. The predication's there. And the big thing is I'm the undercover. So it's my job to get evidence. And most of the time, that means I'm wearing a recording device or more than one recording device, which I always had more than one because video back then, your video recorder can't run all day. You don't have enough battery or memory or whatever. And then I'd have another one that was audio. And then if one failed to work, hopefully you got another recording kind of thing. But so we're coming up to the op where we're supposed to be doing it. I've got several undercovers that came in to help out on that op. And I went out that night before with the Outlaws, and the president told me to come over to the clubhouse. Well, I've been there like, I don't know how many times I've been in that clubhouse. It's only one door I'd never gone in. And I go in there, and it was a weird exchange in the beginning, but I'll speed up the story. I get in there, and the second closest relationship at that point in the case I had was a guy with the street name Clothesline. And Clothesline was the enforcer for the Taunton chapter. Well, we had become pretty tight. And I go in, and I'm having a drink, and we're talking. It's loud music. We're all, it's a biker bar. I mean, it's a clubhouse, so with a bar, obviously. And he comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tex, you got a minute?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So as I'm following him, we go into that door I've never been in. And as I'm turning to go down those steps, another outlaw, Chocolate Scott, comes in behind me. And I'm like, okay, and my spidey senses, Holy Spirit's going off, going, this is not good. Something's not right. And I should have prefaced it with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI. They're like, hey, are they talking about this drug protection, everything in the clubhouse? Like, who's going to help? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, it'd be great to get evidence of that, because that's going to help with asset forfeiture and things like that, search warrants, whatever you need later on. It just builds the case. It helps build the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing my job. And when we go down into that, I call it a basement, but the more I talk about it, it's not about, I mean, it's more like a crawl space. Like I couldn't stand up straight, even though I'm 6'4". I couldn't stand up straight. It's a northeastern home, like a split kind of level. And you go down in there, and I could probably touch the wall on both sides, very tight, but I'm sure the adrenaline dump and the stress made it feel smaller than it was anyway, because I'm having a no crap moment. That's what happens when you have a traumatic incident, whether it's a car crash, shooting, whatever. If it's traumatic to you, your body and brain does certain things. Every time slows down, auditory exclusion, everything sounds like you're underwater. It's all slow motion. And what might be 30 seconds feels like 5 minutes.
Mm.
So I go down in there, and he proceeds to tell me, look, they showed me their pistols. They let me know I'm not free to leave. And he says, and by the way, church, which is, if you don't know and the listeners don't know, in most of your biker clubs, you have a mandatory meeting weekly. They refer to that as church. So they had just had church, which means every outlaw from that chapter is there. So I'm looking at like 12 or so outlaws. And I'm down there with 2 who have pistols, and that doesn't let me know I'm not free to leave. So he tells me, I need you to write down your full name, your address, date of birth, social, all this stuff. And he says, and then I need you to take off all your clothes because I need to check you for a wire. And the problem was I was wired to the hilt. Had I not been wired, it would have just been an embarrassing moment, you know, taking all your clothes off in front of 2 guys with pistols. But I was wired. And now I'm like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I mean, it's like, can I fight, leave? No. I mean, there's like 10 more people upstairs, you know, how's this going to work out? And I forgot my middle name because of the stress of the situation. He told me there's a lot of stuff going on. It's his job to protect his brothers. And I take my boots off. Once I remember my middle name, I write that down. I'm still trying to talk to him, trying to get information, letting them know, hey, you guys, nobody has to do anything if they don't want to do anything. But if you hear my voice on the recording, it does not sound like this. If you hear my voice on that recording, it is way higher. My throat is tighter. My diction is terrible. Talking through my nose because I'm having a no crap moment. I'm panicking. So I remember my middle name. I write it down, which seems like forever. And then I take all my coat, shirts, all that stuff off. I take my boots off, and I drop my jeans and underwear down to my ankles. So I'm nude from the ankles up. And they search me, and I'm starting to come out of that oh crap moment. I'm starting to come back, you know. Hamstrings are feeling good again, heart slowing down, or you know, you're feeling more normal. And I think I'm done. And then he grabs a piece of clothing of mine, and he says, hey, I'm not going to find anything in here I don't want to. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, I mean, like some pictures of my old lady. And he kind of laughs, and I kind of laugh. And I think I said, I hope not. And I'm just sitting there watching him. And he's kneading the jacket with his hands, and my shirts with his hands. And I'm like, I don't even know I do it, but you hear this audible sigh. You hear, because I'm watching, and I can't even stand up straight. And what do? I didn't see plastic on the floor. Had I seen that, I probably would have just tried to fight, you know, because if I, in that world, in my world, if you see plastic on the floor, that means pretty much somebody's going to kill you. And then all they got to do is wrap the plastic around you. There's less cleanup for blood and all that.
We
It's
used
all
to
in
watch
plastic.
Dexter.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
We know.
I
don't know about the audience, though.
Right, I know. So I didn't see that. But, of course, the guns, I saw rope. And he's moving, and he's getting close, and I'm watching. And he kind of looks right at it and missed it. And missed my other devices. And I lived to fight another day. But the follow-up to all that is people always ask, man, what would you have said if he'd have found something? And I said, well, I only had 2 responses. The first one, because I'm a jovial idiot, and he already gave me the line. If he would have said, what is this? I would have said, I don't know, some pictures of the old lady to try to buy time, laugh it off. The only other thing I had was the gig is up. I'm an undercover FBI agent, and I can walk out of here and we can see each other in court, or all you know what's going to break loose. But that would have been a bluff on my part, because as far as I knew, every time I've been in that clubhouse, my team couldn't hear me.
Oh.
So what I found out later that night, I make it out of there. I'm having a huge adrenaline dump. Now I'm just angry and I'm just wired because everything that just happened, you know. So I go to turn in my equipment to the case team. My team might have been 3, 4 in the morning, who knows. And I found out that the 2 task force officers who'd been on the case from day one, great investigators, they had something told them something wasn't right, and they were able to get close enough to hear everything. So while I was in that basement getting stripped and searched and I was wired, they had radioed back to Boston, because technically that was the beginning of the shift, and said, hey, they got Scott down in the basement and they're checking him and he's wired and we can hear it. So from my understanding, everybody that was at the office was hauling down to Taunton the blue lights and sirens. And the task force officers, because of their local law enforcement experience, had been in that clubhouse for other things, and they knew that how heavily fortified the door was. I mean, deadbolts, they welded metal hooks on the door, they put a big metal steel bar across the door. So from a breacher's standpoint, it's probably easier to breach the wall around the door than the door itself. And they had suited up with their vests and everything, and they were in a van. And the plan is if they felt it was time to pull the trigger, they were going to drive the van into the cinder block wall beside the door, hopefully shattering that to at least get in. And I mean, it's a plan.
Yeah, it's a good plan.
Yeah, and then I made it, you know. So when I found that out from them, I'm like, holy cow, you know, that's crazy. And then this is definitely a spiritual thing right here. But at that time in my life, I was married to my wife, and we had 2 daughters. So around that time, my youngest daughter was around 1 year old. And what I had done is what's commonly called a burner phone now. You can just go to Walmart, buy you a track phone, put minutes on it. You don't have to explain anything. You can make up whatever name you want, all kinds of stupid stuff. Not saying that everybody who does that uses it for nefarious things, but I will say that people who do nefarious things usually use this. But I bought her one so it would come back to nothing and I could call it from my undercover phone. And no matter what time of night it was, 4, 5, 7 in the morning, I'd call her and say, hey, just letting you know I'm done. I'm heading back to the hotel. I love you. When I wake up, I'll call you and get caught up. And sometimes she talked. Sometimes she'd just be like, okay, love you too, just to let her know. That night when I called her, the first thing she said was, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, why? And she said she was driving with our daughters in McAllen at a certain time of night and just got this overwhelming feeling of fear and pulled over on the side of the road and started praying for me. And I matched up the time, and it's when I was being stripped in the basement.
Wow.
So,
wow.
And if anybody's looking for distance, I was in Boston, and she's at the bottom of Texas. So that's a pretty long way.
Yeah, that's a big stretch.
That's pretty big signal.
I don't think a lot of Americans know geography that well, so it's pretty
It's
long.
a long way.
It's a long way.
Many states. Wow.
It's almost the top right of the map, all the way to the bottom center of the map. How's that?
So that's supernatural prayer and protection.
Yeah.
They should have found those devices, all of them.
Yeah.
At least one.
Yeah, you'd think.
Wow. You would think would have you take your shirt off like they do on TV.
No, I did. I was naked from the ankles up.
Oh, I thought it was just like up to the waist. Okay.
That was at that one
point.
No.
I mean, boots are off,
crazy.
Jeans and underwear around your ankles.
Wow.
I didn't, and that's it. From the ankles up, I was Adam and Eve, birthday suit.
That is crazy. And then I understand that you've had a lot of experiences like that.
You make it sound so.
She doesn't mean the naked part in front of other men.
No, not that part. The supernatural protection, though.
Yeah. Like I just Scott walks in on undercover and just takes his clothes off. Yeah,
not that part.
Do you ever go to undercover at Chippendales?
Yeah, I know. Let's go ahead and knock this out. I know we just met, but I'm gonna go ahead and take all my clothes off.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Let's go ahead and get this thing straight. My skill set. Well, let me just say this: in law enforcement, in any realm, right? there's always a propensity for violence. It doesn't matter which violation you work. It doesn't matter if you're a white collar and you're at the desk a lot and, you still got to go interview people. You're still going to have to make an arrest if you get evidence of something. There's always a propensity for violence because in the law enforcement world, a lot of times the fight breaks out when you get that first handcuff on, especially for people who aren't used to the system. You get that first handcuff on, it's a lot of times it's your white collar. It's the person that hasn't been to prison. Then they realize, oh no, this is like real. And then that's when a fight breaks out. Or it could be that somebody feels their ideology is threatened or their religious belief is threatened. So there's always a propensity for violence. My skill set on undercover stuff, I didn't get called for white collar things. That wasn't my background. I ended up landing cases that were more, I guess, violent in nature, or it could be a public corruption case, but I'm out in the woods with dirty cops and pillheads, where it's a very rural county and your cover team really can't be too close to you because everybody would know 5-0's in town. Everybody would know the feds are in town. So there's things like that. But, we have a part of the undercover program. It's a unit called Safeguard. And Safeguard was set up. It was created by Joe Pistone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco, and another agent named Steve Band. And it's set up to make sure, just like the word says, you're being safeguarded. You're guarded and you're being kept safe because somebody needs to make sure and have oversight over undercovers, whether we want it or not. Type A personalities like, I don't need nobody telling me, I get it. I said the same thing, but it needs to be there. You have to have oversight and you have to have unbiased oversight. So they'll come in and do psychological assessments and make sure you are okay. But like, say for instance, me getting stripped in the basement, they find out. They're like, hey, is it true you got stripped in the basement at gunpoint and they almost found a wire? I'm like, yeah. And they go, you're not allowed to go back undercover until you come up here and get psychologically assessed. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
that could break you.
So one of the things that I got off on a tangent, but what led me there is you were saying, or I was trying to explain my skill set. So I remember at one point after I'd gotten into some trouble or we had a disagreement and I got put on timeout or whatever, and I come back in and I'm being interviewed and I'm talking to some counselors and they're like, it just seems like you end up on these undercovers that are just violent and these things happen. And I'm like, so you'd rather me work like white collar? You think that's less violent? And they go, well, that'd be nice. I said, oh, okay, cool. And they're like, are you serious? I go, well, yeah. I go, look, you want me to go get some penny loafers and you see some pressed slacks and a sweater vest and all this stuff? I'll cut my hair off, do that. You're willing to do that? I said, absolutely. I said, but is Safeguard going to go out and market the new Scott Payne? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, bro, nobody's calling me for that stuff. I said, I get what you're doing. And you're looking for red flags. You're looking for, tripwires and things. I said, if I walk in here wearing a sweater vest and pressed khakis and penny loafers, that should be a red flag to you because that is not me. I said, that's when you need to go, something's happened to Scott. Something's not right. I said, I don't have that skill set. I said, so if the FBI wants to stop working gangs, stop working drugs, stop working these violent groups, then yeah, I guess I'm out. But this is where I get called and this is where I go. And sometimes those things, they can happen. And hopefully as you get older, you get wiser. And then and by being more wise, you should be more safe. And then, maybe you learn something like if somebody says, if you're not a cop, are you a cop? No. If you're not a cop, then do this line of cocaine. No, I'm out. I'll see you guys later. What? Look, I'm not doing that crap. If you,
right.
Whenever you're ready to make money, you just give me a call. But no.
Yeah, you don't have to be a cop to not want to do cocaine.
Right. Yeah, but sometimes in this world, yeah, and sometimes in this world, especially younger, or if it's, I don't want to say lack of training, but it kind of does fall into lack of training. Say it still happened. I ran into somebody yesterday at the gym and they told me, because they'd seen me for years at the gym, but now they've seen me on Joe Rogan and stuff. And they're like, are you the same guy? I'm like, yeah. So we're talking and they told me they had a friend that was a local cop, but went deep undercover and there was no safeguard. There was no oversight. There was no unbiased oversight. And he ended up losing himself. And that's been going on for, 80s and probably before that. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we still making the same mistake? But he ended up getting addicted to dope, and all kinds of things, because you get into that environment, and a lot of times you get wrapped up in it, and you're thinking, oh, I got to do this. It's the only, I got to do it. I got to make the case. There's no case worth you losing your mental health, your life, your marriage, your job. There's no case worth that. I will throw a caveat. When I teach active shooter stuff, that's completely different. Now if I have actionable intelligence that somebody's dying, I'm going fast to the threat. And I'm going to stop the killing. And then I'm going to move right into stopping the dying. That is different than me being undercover and saying, I've got to do this to make this case. Look, there's cases everywhere, and there's not one. And I get it. I was the same way. But man, we got to quit making mistakes like this. And so when I would go out as an undercover coordinator and teach at the Tennessee Chiefs Association or the Tennessee Sheriff's Association, you're talking all the higher ups, and you're doing other conferences and stuff, I twisted it and stopped saying, look, I might still tell my stories if that's what they want to hear, but we're saying this is what we can offer you. And this is why the undercover technique is awesome. But if you're going to use it, you really need to have these things in place. And if you don't, reach out to this FBI office, ask for me. Here's my personal number. Call me and we can help, because it's just not worth it. It's really not worth it.
You already know we only talk about things here that align with our values. That's why I partner with Live Good. They offer clean, high-quality wellness products. Think vitamins, superfood blends, magnesium, and more. All third-party tested, so I know exactly what I'm using. And the best part? The prices are actually affordable. It's not hype, it's just smart stewardship. And beyond the wellness side, there's opportunity too. People are earning income simply by sharing what they already use and believe in. It's simple, it's honest, and it's working for a lot of people. So if you've been looking for a wellness company that reflects your values and fits your lifestyle, this might be the nudge you need. Tap the link in our About section and explore Live Good for yourself.
So you largely attribute a lot of your safety net to Safeguard, and obviously to Jesus, who's clearly kept people from seeing things that they shouldn't see. How much more dangerous do you think your job is if you don't have Jesus?
For me personally?
Yeah, well, for anybody, I mean.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, if you're asking me, Scott Payne, the believer, man, I wouldn't have been able to do anything that I've done without the grace of God and the skill set He's blessed me with, and the lessons I've been taught, and nothing's perfect, and and especially when you're on the front line, like a worship leader, or I have a line that I say, and it's like, you're never closer to hell than you are when you're fighting for heaven, because you're on the front line. And that means the attacks are coming. So this book has come out. It's been a huge blessing. I never wanted to do it, but I'm very thankful I did now. But now I'm on these platforms and I'm talking about my faith. My faith is all throughout the book. The one editor for Simon & Schuster, we were interviewing with a lot of different publishing companies, but that guy picked up on my faith just in the pitch. And he said, is this something that happened later in life? Or I said, no, I've been faithful. I've strayed. He said, I'd like to see that throughout the whole book. So when he said that, I was like, oh, this is different. But now you're out here and you're spreading this. Well, you better believe attacks are coming, because if you're doing good for the kingdom, the enemy doesn't like it. So be ready, because it may happen. But yeah, without God, man, even when I'm teaching, or when I was teaching for the FBI, I can't really go up there as a government official and sit there and start talking about Jesus and nothing else, right?
Right.
But, later at happy hour or the hospitality suite, I can talk and tell you about me, but usually everybody can pick up on it anyway. But what I do say is, if you're going to do this, look, I hope you believe in something. Because when you're out there on that island by yourself,
it helps to not actually be by yourself.
Yeah. And for me, I know I wouldn't have been able to do it. And I'm an optimist. I'm a glasses half full guy. If I wasn't that way, or I didn't have my sense of humor, goodness gracious, man, the things you see, just being a uniformed patrol officer, the things you see on a daily basis, oh my goodness. I mean, we're first responders and military. And when I say first responders, I mean everybody, medic and fire and law enforcement. We're number one in suicide. We're number one in divorce. We're number one in alcoholism, which you can throw pills or whatever you want to in there now. And usually, I think we're still the top for dying within 5 years after retiring. So it's a pressure cooker. And who signs up for it? Because really, I mean, at the federal level and the FBI, yeah, I made some decent money. But at the local level, you're definitely not doing it for money.
That's for sure. My husband's an EMT. I make more than he does.
I mean, it's just, I
like
wish we could.
Dream job.
Yeah, I wish we could. Yeah, I wish we could flip it, but it's a calling.
So you had to go into different groups and be like those people, even though you had Jesus in you. And then how did you go about earning their trust? And I know you were drinking, but like, did they drink and got drunk? Like, how do you not get plastered? And like, how do you gain their trust?
Yeah, start like in vino veritas, right? Like with wine loosens lips. How do you not spill the beans when you're drunk?
I got a skill set, and just picture this: if I was slurring and not making any sense and passing out, that's all being recorded. I mean, maybe not in the very beginning, but at some point, like I said earlier, I should be gathering evidence. That's my job as an undercover. So can you imagine if we played those tapes back in court, if we go to trial and it's me not even be able to complete a sentence? That just creates doubt in the jury's mind, and the defense would harp all over it, because in the undercover technique, it's the evidence is so overwhelming that really the only thing defense team can do is they can claim entrapment, which should be easy to thwart if you've done your job. And the other thing they can do is try to make you look like a piece of trash on the stand. Like, hey, Mr. Payne, for that 2 years in the Outlaws case, I couldn't help but notice how many times a Jack and Coke was raising up past a video shot to your mouth. And I'm like, oh, did you catch me slurring? Did you also see when it was getting too much, I would go in the bathroom and I would pour a lot of the whiskey out, And you don't have to drink. I mean, you don't have to drink if you're undercover. But as far as taking on ideologies and stuff, and of course I'm not telling them I'm a Christian, but like on my left arm, sleeved out, tattooed, there is a cross, and there's a lot of things that are hidden in there, but you can pretty much make out a cross. All I did, and when I got into the white supremacy there at the end, especially these accelerationist neo-Nazi groups, we'll see a lot of white supremacy used to have, and it was making a comeback, but it was called Christian identity, not to be confused with Christianity at all. But what any extremist group, it doesn't matter whether it's far left, far right, radical jihad, they're all very, very similar. They're very similar in their recruitment techniques. They're very similar in their belief systems, and they all end up with usually an ethno-state or a caliphate or something. And they'll take certain ideologies like paganism, traditional paganism, or traditional Christianity, and they'll twist the living you-know-what out of it to meet their ideology. So like back in the neo-Nazi Aryan Nation days, that was Reverend Butler out and ended up in Idaho before they got all that seized, because they finally did something that could be charged and all their property and everything was seized. But they preached Christian identity. They called themselves Church of Jesus Christ Christian. So what they did, though, is they had the belief system called the dual seed line. And they take the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And this is, I want you got to bear with me because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but this is the way they twist it. They say that Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, still one tree you can't eat from, fruit of the forbidden tree, and you got the serpent, still Satan. However, they twist it to this. They're saying that the fruit of the forbidden tree was a sexual act, and that the serpent is a man of color, aka Satan, and that Eve slept with the serpent, and from that sexual act, Cain was born, and that is the mud race, non-whites, for the rest of eternity. But Adam and Eve procreated Abel, and that's the pure white race. That's just one crazy thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the stretch for them to get there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I don't know what they were smoking when they came up with it, but
yeah,
man.
Right.
Well, yeah, I read that there's two different kinds of studying the Bible, exegesis and eisegesis. And exegesis is you study the Bible to learn, and eisegesis is you read the Bible to confirm your belief. So it seems like they took a lot of eisegesis and just tried to make the Bible say exactly what they wanted it to say to justify hating someone.
Yep. Christians on your own. It's not quite the same, but I'd say Christian on your own terms, you know, not necessarily the Bible's terms. You're like, I'm a Christian. Yeah. But, yeah. And then like paganism. I mean, I've got friends who are pagans and, they have pagan belief system. And so the left side of my arm has that stuff. So what I told this group is I'm like the Christian stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, I used to be Christian identity. And then I just said, but then I'm now pagan because my right arm is a lot of warrior Viking stuff, but it's the armor of God. The shield, the boots, the belt, the helmet, it's all there. It's just
they just don't know enough to know.
Right. Where I was going and where I was infiltrating, I'm like, and I even talked to my pastor about it. I'm like, do you think it's blasphemous? And they said no. And I agreed because I'm like, I know what the true meaning is. And even in the lightning going down one of the lightning storms, it's Psalms 23. You just can't, you got to look at it hard enough to know that the lightning is a PS and a 23. And then when I retired, I went ahead and put Ephesians 6:10 on the back of my arm on the axe handle. But that's what it was, all warrior stuff. But anytime I saw people doing the armor of God, it's either like Knights of the Templar or it's gladiator stuff. And I wanted to be different. And I knew where I was at and what I was doing. So for me, that's what I did. But again, the pagan belief system. So the Norse pantheon, which is Norse ideology, mythology kind of, or not mythology, ideology kind of thing. And that's going to be your Odin and your Thor and stuff like that, and Asgard and Valhalla. And the group I was in, they took that and twisted it. And they said, like, we're going to commit the sacrifice to Odin. This goat's going to Valhalla, but this is going to signify the start of the wild hunt. In Norse mythology, the wild hunt is essentially Odin and other gods going out and laying the smack down on all their enemies. Well, in the twisted ideology of the white supremacy group I was in, it was the wild hunt was going to be us ridding the world of non-whites, especially Jews, and anti-fascist. So even if you're white and you're a liberal or you're not fascist, it's going to be death to you too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what your ideology is. It all matters is your color.
Yeah.
So how hard was that on your spirit to hear them say things, you know, in any environment undercover about certain people or the way they spoke? Or was it second nature for you to just, you know, hone in on your persona to blend?
I got better at it, you know, but there were times like that weekend when, you know, the goat was stolen and sacrificed at a pagan ritual and we drank its blood and all this crazy stuff. But yeah, after that one, man, I came home and I was like, even though I'm at the end of my career, kind of didn't know it, you know, I could have stayed till I was 57, but I mean, after that weekend, yeah, I had to reach out to my pastor. I got home, I was like, man, I feel dirty, nasty. I'm like, oh man, you know what I mean? We burned for that hate camp weekend, a Halloween weekend of 2019. After the goat thing, most of the people did acid, so the second day of training was completely washed because everybody was still high. By Saturday, we're back training again, and by Saturday night, we're doing more filming for propaganda, but we go down to the holy site and do a bonfire and burn American flags, burn holy Bibles, and, you know, they're yelling, F your Jewish God, death to America. So, I mean, I might throw a few of those things out, but I'm pretty sure I'm not saying F your Jewish God.
Right.
You know, and even with like the outlaws and one percenters, it might be like Satan first kind of things or it depends, you know. It's just I'm like, you're saying that. And I would even kind of joke with them because I came in as a country guy, right? I'm in the Northeast. And I'm like, look, I'm not the chalk walkingest guy. I'm not saying I'm some Bible thumper, but I am not saying Satan first. I don't know what the heck you guys are talking about. And then we kind of laugh about it, you know? You guys are a bunch of idiots, you know? What story of hell have you heard that's good? Let's start there, first of all.
Right.
You heard in passing it's better to reign in hell, but I promise you that's not what's happening.
Yeah, I know, man. I've been able to deal with it because of my faith, and it was strong. And I knew I was doing something that God blessed me to do, and I believed I was doing the right thing and not lose myself in that. Didn't always do great at it, But, by the end of my career, and then I'm in there with that group, the base, I felt dirty after that weekend. I will tell you that the Bibles didn't burn, though. I'll put that in the book.
I
That
was
was pretty
wondering about
amazing.
that.
Yeah, actually, the pictures in the book, there's one of the fire, and if you look at that, blow it up or whatever, you can see clearly. You can see clearly the words Holy Bible in the fire. But I watched them. I mean, I helped them. We built the fire, and we're doing all this stuff, and we all went down there with torches, and then that's what built the fire. And even the video showed them opening the Bible up face down, so the pages are hitting the fire first. And the bonfire's going, and it dies down, and one of the guys is stoking the coals, and he's stoking, and next thing you know, a Bible flips open, and it's not burnt. I mean, the outside is kind of charred a little bit, but the pages aren't burnt at all. And it was like, wow, everybody's kind of like, well, that's weird, If you're Jewish,
Like nobody
God,
put
this is
one and
weird.
one together, huh?
Right. So he starts tearing page by page, and it goes up. Now, I've heard people talk science, and they're like, well, a lot of Bible's pages are made out of clay, and they won't burn. I'm like, whatever, bro. You do what you got to do. I'm like, we burned an American flag. It wasn't paper. I don't know, stuff was on fire. That's all I can tell you. So now the bonfire's going again, and we're still yelling stuff and talking stuff and hate. And then the fire dies down again. And this guy's stoking the coals again. And I'll be daggone if the second Bible doesn't flip open and not a single page burnt. Now, what I wish is I could have been able to see what book it was, much less what page, you know what I mean? But,
yeah, it'd been really cool if it was the same one both times.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'd be really cool, right? But it was still cool what was happening, because when the second one flipped open, one of the guys in the group, he goes, man, these effing Bibles just won't burn. And that's when I had a little quiet moment. I didn't say it out loud, but I kind of, in my head, I looked up to the Lord and I gave him a little Sammy Sosa, hey man, that's cool. I'm like, that's awesome. I get you. I think I see it. I get it. That's funny, and amazing at the same time. So
There was this one headline: he drank blood to stop a massacre.
Some of these titles I don't pick. By the way, I didn't pick Hillbilly Down Nebraska. I'm like, I think that came either during the Rolling Stones interview or after, but I'm like, I'm still friends. I mean, my mentor is Joe Pistone. He hit me up. He texted me after I got Joe Rogan, and he goes, Country, because my nickname's been Big Country forever in the FBI. He's like, Country, how did you land Joe Rogan? And I'm like, it's divine intervention, boss. I have no idea, I asked and it happened. I don't know. Because the guy turns down the top of the top daily, So some of these things, I don't come up with the title. But what that thing is referring to is the ritual. That hate camp, they went and kidnapped this goat, stole it, ram, goat, I don't know the difference. It had horns. It was big. I don't know. I've talked to owners, and I still don't understand it. And I can Google it, but I still come out like, I don't know. It could have been a goat or a ram. I have no idea. But
Big country, but you don't introduce brings the ram in a coat. That's
no. I don't.
Man,
look, it's my accent.
That's the biggest part I'm disappointed about right there.
I know. Well, okay. Well, I'll go research it. I'll know better. But I'm pretty sure they didn't know the difference either. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't either. But they get the goat. We take it down to the ritual site. Hold the blot, B-L-O-T. That's usually the worship ceremony for pagan. And but of course they did it all wrong, and they did it in a white supremacy way. And then, commence to killing the goat, cutting its throat, filling a cup of blood, where everybody's on their knees in a circle at what they considered our holy spot down in the woods. And I'd say the majority of the members took a hit of acid under their tongue and then drank the blood.
Oh my.
I was holding the flashlight for the guy tearing the sheets of acid who led the blot and told the whole story about the wild hunt and all that stuff. And that the goat was going to be going to Valhalla. He even named the goat Gar, short for Garfield, because his middle name was Garfield and his grandfather's first name was Garfield. We had to show the goat love because it needed to know it was loved and it was going to see Odin in Valhalla. And I'm like, okay. I don't think the goat agrees, but,
That doesn't feel like love.
I know, right? Does the goat get a say in this? So to kill the goat, cut the throat, and then we're going around. So by the time the cup of blood gets to me, it's all clotted and chunky. It's coagulating. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to turn this thing up and have these big chunks of ugh, you know.
Oh yeah.
But one of them gave me an out, so I just stuck 2 fingers deep into the blood and then sucked all the blood off my fingers. So that's what they're saying. I drank the ghost blood, because by the end of that weekend, I had already gained trust. I was in one of the cells, CELL, and it was the North Georgia cell, and that's where we were doing all the training for that weekend. But at the end of that, the guys in my cell started opening up a little bit more. They had thrown some things, but we couldn't, we can't speculate. We're not sure what they were actually meaning, but that's when we started uncovering murder plots. The Georgia crew was planning on murdering what they believed to be a couple heavily involved with Antifa. Didn't matter if kids or animals were there. We were going to kill everything in there. They went to elaborate planning for the whole thing. And then we also uncovered up in the Baltimore, Delaware area, that cell was looking at possibly murdering some people and trying to start what they thought would be the Boogaloo, which is what they used to refer as D-Day, the race war. It had been January of 2020, and it was going to be a gun rights rally in Virginia. And their idea was to pop off some rounds so that the militia and the pro-Second Amendment people might think it's the protesters, and the cops might think it's somebody else, and just start kind of anything to create chaos. Mm-hmm. Because that's what accelerationists believe. They don't believe there's a political solution to save the white race. They believe society is going to collapse either on its own or from man-made events, and they want to speed it up.
They clearly don't understand that white people only make up 7% of the globe.
Yeah, well,
it's not really a fight we can win globally.
My joke also is like, yeah, because if everybody's white, that'll fix everything. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm sure there won't be any infighting. And by the way, in any of those groups that I was in or been around, there was nobody doing a 23andMe. I didn't see one pale, fair-skinned, blue-eyed, blonde-headed, Scandinavian-looking dude in there. They were all mixed. Everybody would be pretty upset. They'd be kicking their own butt if they found out what was in their blood.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to shoot
myself.
Man.
Yeah.
That's messed up. It's so incredible to hear that there's like groups that are actively doing things like that throughout America. You were just attached to the ones that you knew about.
This is global, though. Like in the base, because of your phone and technology now, we had members in Australia, South Africa, Canada, Germany, the UK. It's all over.
Wow.
Now, am I telling you there's millions of them? No. But is it there? Yes. And are kids being actively recruited and radicalized online? Absolutely. And it's not just on the white far right side. It's on the left. It's on the radical jihad. A lot of it's happening online.
Yeah, no, it could be millions. If you consider that our planet has 8 billion people, it absolutely could be a huge number.
If you start looking, at least the characteristics I saw were very similar. And it goes back to me like in the 80s and 90s, cults and gangs. You're still looking, the recruitment's almost the same. It's like you're looking for somebody possibly from a broken home, mm-hmm. an outcast, somebody, because the human nature generally is people want to belong. Mm-hmm. So picture you're a young person, and just say you're a young white male, because since we're talking about the groups I infiltrated, and you have been bullied. You are an outcast. You can't find a partner. And sometimes you're socially awkward. Now you go back to your room and you're up all night on your phone, diving down these dark web apps and these other groups. And then you start seeing something, and then you see somebody that's like-minded, and you start going further and further and further until you're a full-blown accelerationist.
Mm-hmm. And they have obviously outlets where they groom people specifically with those outliers.
Well, yeah. Like I said, we were openly recruiting. That's how I got in. The base was openly recruiting. They're like, hey, save your race, join the base. Scan this QR code. It'll take you right to a BitChute video. And, email us at thebase_1@protonmail.com. But all the stuff usually goes to like Proton Mail or Telegram. It's going to be something that's not based in the United States. And it's going to be something to where they think, hey, it's encrypted, peer-to-peer kind of thing. They're going to look at it and say, okay, the feds, being the alphabet boys and girls in the United States, won't be able to subpoena stuff because this is based out of Sweden or it's based out of Russia. kind of thing. So not saying that everybody on there is doing bad stuff, but as I said earlier, people who are doing bad stuff go to those places to do it. So if you got kids on Discord, Telegram, even WhatsApp, you know, you need to know, or you got kids playing online video games, Roblox, that is a kid game. Man, there are people going there and grooming kids. Pedophiles are going on there. 764, they're going on there and they're doing this stuff. And it's horrific. And if you scratch at the surface of most of your accelerationist groups, you will find probably one member or more involved with satanic far-right extremist groups like O9A, Order of Nine Angles. They get into more of a celestial angels and demons kind of thing, but it's big on rape, sexual abuse, pedophilia, and is it 764 or 724? Am I saying it right? I think it's 764.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I felt so
well.
Like out of it.
I missed my last meeting, so I don't know.
Right? It's out there now, and it's kind of like it's not all per se white supremacy, but it's an accelerationist ideology, and it is. I mean, it's horrific. Like they're sextorting kids. They'll get somebody and they'll do live watch groups and force people to harm themselves. They call it a bean. When you cut through the fat, if you cut through deep enough into your skin through fat, when it opens up, it looks like a kind of like a navy bean or a lima bean. They call that a bean. And they're having people do this by sextorting them, threatening them with stuff. And even with AI, you can make it look like somebody's done something sexual, embarrassing, or whatever without it even being real. And they're doing that stuff. So they're pushing, and they push pedophilia, they push Satanism big time, they push rape, abuse, people taking their own lives on live video so they can watch. There's like a point system. It's just sick.
Wow.
But it's a bunch of lost souls. So I'm not saying be a helicopter parent, but I'm saying if your kid's on a video game and they're talking to people, you need to know who they're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really grateful that you are now retired and you don't have to keep subjecting yourself, because that has to be hard and weary on the spirit to continually be in something like that. I'm glad that you're in a place where you can mend a little bit spiritually, mentally. Yeah. I'm very grateful for what you've done for the good of our country, the good of the people that you stopped harm from befalling, that you've done good things, and sometimes you had to do bad things to do good things. And I'm glad that you're in a space now that you can heal from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and for the most part, it didn't ding my armor too bad, but I didn't work the pedophilia stuff. I can tell you that. The crimes against children, I can't look at that stuff. Thankfully, there are people who can, but they need to be psychologically maintained, because it can't be good for you.
There's no way I'd be able to do it. There's no way I'd be able to write 2 cases, that's for sure. One would break me.
Yeah, now as an undercover, I could go pick up the pedophile. I could talk to the pedophile on the phone. I could even have the book to show them what they wanted to choose from. That I could probably get by doing, but like looking at the images and the videos and stuff, I can't. Before I even had kids, I saw like 5 pictures, and it messed me up for weeks. Like my wife would try to touch me and be like, "Hey, honey," I'm like, "Don't touch me. I ain't. I got to get this. I got to get this out of my head. I don't know what I'm doing, but I got to fix it before I can even try to be intimate or hug you." I'm like,
it blows my mind that people are comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. Not obviously on our end of it trying to correct it, but the people that are into it. It blows my mind that clearly is pointing that we do need a savior. It's clearly pointing that only God can protect us from ourselves and from our own dark desires. Like if you don't think spiritual warfare is real, to me it's banana sandwich when it's things like that out there that people are literally attracted to and trying to justify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guarantee you would be utterly shocked and disappointed if you knew how much of that is out there.
I feel so blessed to be oblivious to all of this because I didn't realize the KKK still existed today. Like, how do you even think like that? I don't know.
Well, at least my experience with the KKK was very comical movie. Take a KKK scene from any comedy movie or Django Unchained.
That's what I was thinking.
Do they still wear the hats? Like, is that a thing?
Oh, yeah. That's a hood. Yeah, hood in the robe. I was getting fitted for mine before the case went to, I already passed the KUNO test. And,
wow.
But I mean, it's like, but I don't know.
I could never do that because my poker face, It's no, like you.
Oh, you
My
start crying
mouth
right
can
away.
remain quiet, but my face cannot.
Well, that's one of the things I put in the book, and I talk about, because you learn there's a boatload of history. I mean, I've got everything that that I was supposed to learn. I've got it's the Quran. The Clan Bible is the Quran, and it teaches you all the stuff and the verbiage and the secrecy and all this stuff. And some
Wow.
of it, it was pretty interesting. You know, I'm like, oh man, back in the day, so everybody talked in code, you know, but like the Clud is like the chaplain for the group. So they had on a green robe, and he was like, I mean, they had the 20, 30-foot cross, whatever, it's wrapped in burlap and then steel wire, and then soak it in diesel fuel. You stand it up and you light it with the ceremony and everything. But I said, we're going in, because I'm like, hey, are we doing a cross burning tonight? And he said, now, Scott, it's not a cross burning. That'd be sacrilegious. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he said, it's a cross lighting. And I'm like, oh. And
Semantics.
he said, it signifies the light of Jesus. Now he's putting his hands up and pointing to the sky. He goes, it signifies the light of Jesus Christ coming into the world and driving the darkness out. Now, I'm assuming darkness means like black people or non-whites, but he said, and driving the darkness out. Now, but in my sick sense of humor, in my head, I'm like, right, because I've met so many white guys named Jesus. I'm like, what are you telling me? Come on, man. You know,
Right.
Did you do know that Jesus was Jewish? I'm just nothing. All right, we'll stick with your story. It's okay.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah. So
Never understood that about early American history, especially that you would teach people English so they could read the Bible and then treat them less than you would treat everybody else.
Yeah.
You would recognize that they need saved, but you can't recognize that they're like you, that they have the same Savior, and that you guys are all worshiping the same God. It blows my mind.
Well, and you know, also like the base. I mean, there's so many different ideologies and craziness, and it's like the kid was trying to tell me, he goes, you know, it's a very well-known fact that Attila the Hun was a redheaded white guy, and I'm like,
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Like,
Wasn't well known to me.
what? And it's like, oh yeah, there's all kinds of historical literature out there that says when they described what Attila the Hun looked like, he was a red-headed white man. And I'm like, a Viking? You know, it kind of doesn't match what's your there. Okay, whatever.
or any of the pictures, and they painted him a lot. The Chinese did.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
weren't real happy with him, you know, and us many attacks into them.
Yeah. And then some of them believe that there's such a thing as a hollow earth, and Hitler's down there alive, living with the Garthans and other things that are like 15-foot plus tall white men with red hair waiting to come back. And I'm like, well, what are they waiting on? What are you,
Right?
you know, I'm like, okay, all right, well, they're down there for what? Well, they're waiting for the race war, and then they're coming back. And I go, so why are they waiting? Let's just get this thing going. Well, you got a phone number? How do we get in touch with him down there in Hollow Earth?
Yeah, I've heard many a theory, but I didn't know that Hitler was still alive.
Well,
I had heard
probably
Hollow
some-
Earth and lizards that shapeshift into people. I've heard those
Yes.
stories.
yeah, the lizard people. That is, and a lot of that kind of goes into the Christian identity as well, because the serpent. Remember the dual seed story? The serpent is Satan. So that whole lizard people, some of that comes out of there.
Oh, perfect.
The guy that blew up or tried to blow up the entire AT&T building in Nashville. What was it, New Year's Day or Christmas Day? I think it was Christmas Day, I think. That was, he had a big lizard people belief. And that was part of the ideology, was that everything going to 5G was going to activate whatever the heck is in the people, and the lizard people are going to come out, kind of thing.
Well, that didn't happen. I guess 6G will do it.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, we'll see. You know, I mean, I remember working Y2K. I worked a double shift in New York City because, you know, the clocks aren't going to, everything, the time's going to end at midnight, you know. And I'm standing in Manhattan, and, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, here we go. And okay, it's now midnight. Lights are still on. Nobody
survived.
disappeared.
It's
Nobody
12:01
disappeared.
now.
I always joke, because I'm like, if the rapture happens and I see people disappearing and I'm still standing here, I'm gonna be like, Lord, are you serious? Come on. I'm like, I played like 4 services this weekend.
I got killed at Y2K.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know how it happened. I just know that I was in the Navy and I got out of the Navy in 98 and then joined the Army in 2009. And when I joined the Army, they thought I was going for fraudulent enlistment because I had died December 31st, 1999. I was like, Y2K
Whoa.
killed me? How did that happen? I might be the only
Little did you
casualty
know.
from Y2K.
Little did you know.
So it did affect some people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there was a glitch somewhere, right?
I wanted my taxes back for all those years I was paying them when I was dead.
Yeah, hitting me back. There's got to be something in there for you.
Wow, what an extraordinary life you've lived. I can't imagine keeping a straight face through all those experiences. Like, what are you even thinking? That's wild. So, do you have like a Bible verse that anchored you through all of your
Tons.
years?
Tons. A lot of the power stuff, I've got some of them tattooed in me. 2 Samuel 22:33, Isaiah 41:10. I've got Trinity knots. I've got other things hidden in there. But yeah, 23rd Psalm, a lot of stuff like that. When I was having the crash stuff, that's when I really fell in love with the 2 Samuel 22:33.
Which one is that?
It is, well, you can put me on the spot. Let's go.
I'm gonna have to be looking all these up because I have no
We're
idea.
not asking you what your middle name is, so it should be easier.
I know, right? I know it now.
Like
David.
the gist.
I'm not undercover. Stripped at gunpoint. I usually, when I'm saying my prayers in the morning, I just have a list of verses like Philippians 4:13, but they all run together. So I'm like saying them, and then they go right to the next one. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That's a great one, 23rd Psalm. Mm-hmm. But 2 Samuel 22:33, I may miss a word or two, but here we go. God is my strength and my power. He makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He sets me on high places. He prepares my hands for battle so they can bend bronze. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. Things like that, just to help. To pick me up when I was beat down. Mm-hmm. I'm drawn to those kind of things. But as I've aged, I'm drawn to more. And I get the Bible verse every day from the Bible app. Mm-hmm. And if one of them really resonates with me, I archive it. And then when it's time for the beginning of the year and you're trying to pick your word of the year, your faith word of the year, I go through all of those and I'll read and I'll pick one.
Outstanding.
I know not a lot of people are going to be put in experiences like you've been. Do you have a word of encouragement for people living a regular life?
Yeah, we all face adversity. We all have hardships.
Yes. No, you don't have to be.
You don't have to be naked and afraid in the basement.
Yeah, exactly, right? Before the show even came out, right? I was naked and afraid. Yeah, anybody. You can be going through anything traumatic. Just lean on the Lord. If you put God in front of everything, I said this to my daughter recently, and I get it when you're younger. Sometimes you might get church hurt, you might get Lord hurt, but if you're lucky enough to keep going, you can look back later. It's not your time. It's based on Him. But if you put God at the center of everything, you'll be okay. You follow it. And I'm like, I would tell people, I go, for me, it's God first, family second, and I'm including my dogs in family. Mm-hmm. And then everything after that is way down the list. Now, am I a workaholic? Yes. Am I goal-oriented? Yes. Does that mean I'm going to be involved and want to accomplish and go, go, go? Yes. But that's why we have tripwires or code words like me and my wife have learned that if she needs me, and this is when I was working, like I could be on the scene at an arrest and she's like, hey, I need you. And I'd be like, okay, I'm about to wrap it up. And she'd say, no, Scott, I need you. And I'd go, okay, I'll drop what I'm doing. I'd be like, I got to go. Because at the end of the day, that job's going to come and go, Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Lord, it's just, I've just been blessed over and over. I'm trying to do His will. If something works out more with this book, I know it's because He blessed me with it. It hadn't only been out. It wasn't even 3 months, and we were already New York Times best-selling author list, and now it's international. Truly thankful, grateful, and blessed.
What a way to be. I'm very grateful to hear your story. I love your humor. I share a lot in the same dark humor, and oftentimes question, how Christian am I with some of the things that I laugh at? You get it. And
I look and go, hey, you're the one that blessed me with this sense of humor. Now, come on.
Yeah. And put me through the life that I'm in. to use it and hone it and develop it to a point that it keeps me safe.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. And I just appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate the hard work that you did, the sacrifices that you made, which I know were plenty, and the things that you had to witness that could not have been good for you. And I am grateful that you're in a place where you can be in healing now. And I'm grateful for the things that you've done for your fellow man and woman and dog. I really appreciate men like you that stand up for everybody. And you clearly, with your warrior tattoos and such, you clearly are a warrior for Christ, maybe even a commando. And I love that you lean into it and that you trust in him. And I'm glad that you're over the nonsense that you were with in your youth, making fun of and trying to play off on satanic certain things. And I'm glad that God revealed to you why that was bad. And I'm glad that you've leaned into what you've leaned to now. You're a tremendous influence for believers. You're a tremendous influence over adversity, that people can see horrible things, but trust in God, and they can be set back on the path of righteousness.
Yeah. And I say a lot of times, but I'm like, look, there's evil people on this planet that want to do evil things to good people. And that's been that way pretty much forever,
Yeah.
So, but it's not just being a warrior, it's a shepherd's heart. You're a servant's heart, the shepherd mentality, that livestock guardian dog. And that's what I've been blessed to do and be. So,
Well put.
Thank you for being with us, Scott, and taking the time to tell your story in our podcast.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Listen, let's stay connected. Come follow us on all the socials at God's Goodness Podcast, where you can find the latest and say, hey, it's a really great way to stay in touch. Many of you have asked how you can support the show. You can make donations through any of the links in the About section, or, of course, by praying for us, as well as sharing, rating, and reviewing on social media and iTunes. Your heartfelt feedback always reminds us why we do this. Until next time, remember, God is always working, miracles are real, and your breakthrough could be just around the corner. Keep believing, keep expecting, and don't forget to share this with someone who needs hope today. We'll talk to you next week.